As you know, welcome to the Dental Assistant Registration course. As you know, the state board requires that you have this course and to be registered with the board. Now, the state board has laid down objectives for this course. They require that we talk about 3 subjects. They require we talk about jurisprudence, infection control, and radiology. Now, within each one of these subjects, they have specific requirements about what we've got to talk about today. So everything we're talking about is required by the state board, so it's not my ideal. All right, for instance, jurisprudence here is going to run about 1 hour. Infection control will run close to 2 hours. So we'll go through jurisprudence first, then we'll go into infection control, and then we will go into radiology, which will take up the largest portion of the day and is the biggest section of the course. Now, let me just introduce myself first of all here. I'm Bob Cooley. I'm a dentist. I graduated from the University of Alabama Dental School, went right into the U.S. Air Force where I spent 21 years, so I was a career dental officer in the dental corps there. And then I retired from the Air Force and I went to the dental school in San Antonio where I was director of the Johnson & Johnson Fellowship in Infectious Disease Control. And I also worked with the senior dental students where I supervised their treatment of patients on the clinic floor. Then I retired from the dental school and I started my own little company I called OSHA Solutions, and it's really small because I'm the only one in it, and I do OSHA and HIPAA training for dental offices now. The state board's objectives for this course, for the Dental Assistant Registration course, are laid out here. The course must be 8 hours long, and so the way I've divided it out is we'll have 7 hours of lecture today and then 1 hour at the end of the day for the test. So this is going to be a long, long day. It's probably going to be longer for me than for you. So it will be a long day, but just be patient and let's work our way through it. All right, between the lecture and the test, we'll have a review period, which will take about, I think, 45 minutes or so. Now, what I'd like for you to do today is try to maintain your concentration on the course material. It's a long day. You may get a little distracted. You may get a little tired. After lunch, you may get a little sleepy. So I don't mind if you stand up along the back or stand up along the walls, just so you maintain your concentration on this course material, because today is the only day we've got to do this. You've got to get it today and then be able to give it back to us on the test. So as we go along today, if I say something's important, if I say put it in your memory, why don't you mark that on your handouts? The only time you've got to study today is the breaks. So go out, get something to drink, eat, come back in, study the material we've just covered. Also at lunch today, if it's agreeable with you, lunch will be served here. Let's eat lunch and see if we can start back within about 30 minutes. 30 minutes for lunch. I know that's short, but if we can get served and eat, then that way we'll cut the afternoon short by 30 minutes. You can start the test a little bit early. That's agreeable with you. We'll just have to see how the serving goes. The first section we need to cover today is called jurisprudence. Now, if we're going to talk about jurisprudence, I think it's important for you need to know what that term means. Now, jurisprudence is the laws pertaining to dentistry and the interpretation of those laws. Everybody with me? Jurisprudence are the laws pertaining to dentistry and the interpretation of those laws. Now, that's not exactly what it says here, but it's an interpretation of that. Now, I like to start out my lectures with a motivational poster, one that will get everybody fired up about learning, excited about learning. So my motivational poster for today is called Flattery. And it says, if you want to get to the top, you've got to be prepared to kiss a lot of the bottom. But you probably already knew that. My disclaimer for today is, do not take anything I say as legal advice. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer. And in fact, some of this stuff gets so complicated, it requires an attorney or a lawyer to interpret it. Also, as we go along today, my interpretation of the state board rules may not be the same as those made by the state board. So especially when we get to the section on dental assistants and we're talking about what you can and can't do, it's just my interpretation. It may or may not agree with the state board. Now, let's go ahead and start the jurisprudence section. And I'd like to start off talking about the state board's website. And I think it's important for the dental assistant to know about this because it gives all the information on registration, and it also gives a lot of other information that may be important to you. The dental assistant, first of all, the state board's website address is right up here, and I put it in real big letters. Now, on your handout, it'll be in black and white, but here's the address right here. So if you take this address and put it into your browser and hit return, this page should come up. Here is the section on dental assistants right here. Now, I put big red arrows in here to indicate what we're talking about. These won't show up on the website. I have inserted these. All right, this is the dental assistant section, and the first thing we're going to talk about are laws and rules. Now, if you want to find out about registration procedures, it's right here, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So bring your cursor down here to where it says laws and rules, click on this, and this page should come up. And this page is called the laws and rules that pertain to the dental assistant. Well, there are all these things right here. If you read every one of these, it would probably take you all day, and it would be painful reading. But what we're going to do is we're going to narrow in and focus on the spots that are important to you. Now, if we scroll down the page, in other words, come down on your monitor and drop down here, we'll come to a section that called the State Board Rules and Regulations Pertaining to the Dental Assistant. Where we're going to spend most of our time today is Chapter 114. This is Duties of the Dental Assistant. We'll also cover Chapter 115, Duties of Dental Hygiene. Then I'm going to throw in a few other things that I think that you need to know. Now, these are the names that are used by the State Board. State Board is referred to by a bunch of names, but the first one up here is the official name. The official name is the Texas State Board of Dental Examiners. All right, sometimes abbreviated like this. Now, sometimes they drop the T off and it just becomes State Board of Dental Examiners, abbreviated like this. Today, I'll just be using the term State Board. Some people will just say the board. Now, what I'd like you to remember is all of these things are the same. Every one of them are the same, and refer back to the Texas State Board of Dental Examiners. Now, who is it that is going to grant you your certificate of registration? The State Board of Dental Examiners, right. All right, who is it that's going to enforce the Dental Practice Act, which are the laws relating to dentistry? The State Board of Dental Examiners. You've got it. Now, the State Board has two missions, and they're listed here. I think it's important that you know this. Now, the first mission of the State Board is on the side of every police car. What is that? To protect the public. So that's number one. And number two is right here, to safeguard the dental health of Texans. So the State Board has two missions: to protect the public, number one, and number two, to safeguard the dental health of Texans. All right, now who is on the State Board? I think this is important to the dental assistant also to know about the State Board. All right, there's two big sides to the board. Up here is the professional side. Down here is the staff. So let's talk about the staff first. Now, if you call the State Board, if you write them, you email them, you're going to be dealing with the staff down here. Now, the staff is more or less permanent. They're state employees. It consists of an executive director, legal advisors, clerks and committees, and investigators. Now, if one of your patients makes a complaint to the State Board, one of these investigators will probably come to your office and you'll get to know them. Now, the State Board is not a large organization. There's only about 21 members on the staff side, and there's 7 investigators, which are scattered around the state. The part that I think that's important for you to know is the professional side of the board. Now, the professional side is appointed by the governor, so they're political appointees. There are 15 members, and they serve 6 years. Now, they don't all come and go at the same time. What they do is they stagger these people so that not everybody is new on the board. There's 8 dentists, 2 hygienists, and 5 members of the public. There are also 2 advisory committees to the State Board. There's the Dental Hygiene Advisory Committee, and there's the Dental Laboratory Certification Council. Both of these committees are advisory in nature, which means they can give advice to the board, and the board can say, thanks, but we're not going to do that. Or thanks, we think that's a good idea, we're going to implement that. Now, the State Board rules, where do they come from? All right, it's important for you to know, where do the State Board rules come from? Well, they come from laws passed by your Texas legislature. So the Texas legislature passes the laws. Then the State Board takes these laws and writes the rules from it. Now, the laws, when they're first passed, are called the Dental Practice Act. So that's the laws coming from the state legislature relating to dentistry. The dental laws are created by the same legislative process as any other laws. Then they're published in a big book of laws called the Occupation Codes. Now, within this big book of laws called the Occupation Codes, there's the Dental Practice Act, there's the Medical Practice Act, there's the Nursing Practice Act, and so forth. The Texas laws become State Board rules. Now, the State Board has the authority to take the new law and write it in the rules. Now, as we go along in this section, beside each statement, there will either be this abbreviation right here, SEC. If you see that abbreviation, it stands for section. Now, that refers back to the original law, the Dental Practice Act. If you see the word rules, that refers back to the State Board rules. Now, the State Board rules must be followed, or the professional can be fined, reprimanded, or lose their license or certification to practice. Does this pertain to the dental assistant? Does this pertain to the dental assistant? Yes, it does. Are you professionals? Yes, you are. All right, so this pertains to you. If you break one of the State Board rules, then the State Board says they will take disciplinary action, which means they're not going to say what they're going to do to you. It'll be disciplinary action. So it could be a warning, it could be a reprimand where they yell at you, or it could be a fine, or they could actually revoke your certificate. The occupation codes versus the State Board rules. The occupation codes are the laws passed by the legislature. Remember, it's that big book of laws relating to professionals. All right, then the State Board rules are written from the occupation codes or the Dental Practice Act. The State Board has rulemaking authority in 3 large areas. Now, the first one is on this slide right here. The next 2 will be on the next slide. The first area which they have authority in is the Board may adopt and enforce rules necessary to do these things here: perform their duties, ensure compliance with the rules to protect the public health and safety, examine applicants for licensure, and organize board meetings. In addition, the State Board, number 2, may adopt rules that prohibit a dentist from entering into a contract with somebody who's not a dentist that would interfere with that dentist's professional judgment. And secondly, the State Board may adopt and enforce rules to protect the public health from the spread of infection. Now, what this says is the State Board can have their own infection control rules, and they do. There's 3 pages of them. Now, one of the surprising things to me was the State Board's objectives for this course did not require that we cover their own rules, which I thought would be very important to you. We'll mention some of them as we go along today, but we won't cover them in depth. The next topic. The State Board has the authority to revoke, suspend, or deny a person a license. So up in this section here, we're going to talk about how the State Board can deny a person the opportunity to even take a licensing exam, like the one you're going to take here today. Or secondly, the State Board can revoke a license. So down here, we'll talk about how they can revoke a license. So let's start up here. The State Board can deny the opportunity to a person to take a licensing exam if they've been convicted of a criminal act. What criminal acts would prohibit this? Be a felony or a misdemeanor, right here. So a felony or a misdemeanor. So the State Board says if you've been convicted of a felony or misdemeanor, they can deny you the opportunity to even take this exam. Now, some young people in this state will get a felony conviction on their record by altering their driver's license. If you alter a driver's license in this state, it's a felony if you get caught. Now, what do they alter on their driver's license? The birth date or to alter their age. Why do they do that? So they can get into bars, they can get into clubs, so they can buy alcohol. So if they get caught then, that's a felony conviction. All right, now the State Board does have a method where they can waiver this felony act. It doesn't say they will or they must, but it says they can. And there's about 14 questions you have to answer. You send them to the State Board, they'll evaluate the situation and then tell you yes or no. All right, the State Board says they will revoke a license, and that means your certificate also, if you're in prison for a felony conviction, if you have your felony community supervision revoked, if you have your parole revoked, or your mandatory supervision revoked. Now, if you're like me, you're wondering, well, how could you have a license if you're out on parole? I don't know the answer to that. Okay, defaulting on a student loan. The State Board may deny an application for license or license renewal, may suspend the person's license or take other disciplinary action if they have defaulted on their student loan. Now, the next topic is the big one for you, X-ray registration or radiology registration. You all know that back in the year 2004, your legislature passed a new law that went into effect September 2004. What this new law said was, dental assistants who take X-rays must pass certification exams on radiology, jurisprudence, and infection control. Now, originally, This law required the dental assistant to go to prometric test centers and take a separate test on each one of these subjects. The law has changed since then. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Now, dental assistants who do not take x-rays do not have to do any of this. So if you don't take x-rays, you don't need to be here today, you don't need to take this exam. And I've had people in my course who actually don't take x-rays in their office. But you never know. You may not be working in the same dental office forever, and you may need this registration later on. All right, dental assistants who are not certified dental assistants through the Dental Assisting National Boards only have to take one exam. Now, there's something called a certified dental assistant, and these people have taken the Dental Assisting National Boards, and if they pass them, they can become certified dental assistants. They only had to take one exam under this old program, and that was jurisprudence. As of September 2006, dental assistants must take a course with an exit exam. All right, starting last September, a new law went into effect. They did away with the prometric test, and now the only way you can become certified or get a certificate or become registered with the board is to take a course like this that's 8 hours long with a test at the end. Now, the law says the test had to have at least 50 questions. Well, I'm going with the minimum amount of questions and time, so we'll only have 50 questions on our test. We could have more than that. We could have 75, 100, 200, whatever. All right, the law said that the course had to be at least 8 hours long. It could be longer than that. As you probably know, some of the courses around the state now are 2 days instead of 1 day like this. Also, this new law extended the registration date till September of this year. So all dental assistants in this state should be registered as of September 2007, unless you're newly hired, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. All right, this new law was called Senate Bill 610, and what it did, it authorized a course and exam to be offered through self-study, computer courses, internet, or lecture. It retained the requirement that your license should be renewed annually. I'd like for everybody to put that in your memory. You're going to have to renew your license or certificate every year, and we'll talk about how we're going to do that. Also, it authorized newly hired dental assistants to take x-rays for up to 12 months before they become registered with the board. So, in your office, if you hired a new dental assistant today, when would they have to become registered with the board? All right, so June 2008, right? The rest of you need to be registered by September of this year. All right, another thing that this Senate Bill 610 did was extend the registration date. Now, originally, under the old law, everybody's supposed to have been registered last September, but the new law extended it out till September 2007, so it's coming up pretty quick now. Dental assistant registration procedures. All right, now let's say that you've taken this course today, you've passed the exam, you're going to become registered with the board. Here are the procedures. Number one, we got to provide proof of passing an exam that covers these 3 topics right here: jurisprudence, infection control, and radiology. Okay, so when you get through with the course here today, we'll give you a certificate or a letter saying you've passed the course. That will be your certificate saying you've passed a course that covers these 3 areas here. Now, are you going to send that certificate to the board? No. What are we going to do? We're going to photocopy it. You want to keep that certificate in a safe place. Same with your CPR card. We've got to send proof of CPR, so photocopy your CPR card. Complete an application, and I'll show you where to get that in just a minute, and send in your fees. Now, I believe that everybody's got an application form in this manila folder right here, and so you've got a new one here, but if you need another one, I'll show you how to download it off of the internet. All right, let's go back to the State Board's website. Now, let's say you want to register with the board. You passed the course, you've got your certificate. Let's go and look at the State Board's website. It says registration procedures. So put your cursor right here, click on it. When you do, this page comes up. So scroll down here where it says Dental Assistant Registration Application. All right, go over here. There's an Adobe Acrobat icon. You click on that, and when you do, it will open up the application form. The application form looks like this. It's a 2-page form. All right, you're going to answer all the questions on the first page down to here, and then you're going to send in a fee of $50. All right, $50. All right, now when you send this in, 1 month, maybe 2 or 3 weeks to 1 month later, you'll get a letter back from the State Board saying, congratulations, you finished the first step in registration. Now we want more money. You got it. All right, turns out the $50 is to handle this paperwork right here. All right, then they want the first period's registration fee. Notice I didn't say year, because what they're going to do is stagger your registration so that not everybody re-registers in the same month. So the first period of registration for some of you will be as short as 6 months. For some of you, it'll be a year and a half. So there'll be various periods of time when you're going to re-register. So this is the first page. Now let's take a look at the second page. I answer all these questions here, and down here it says that the State Board wants this form notarized. They want you to go before a notary public and swear that you're who you say you are. All right, where are you going to find a notary public? A bank or credit union. All right, now let's go back to the State Board's website. Let's say you become registered with the State Board, and you want to check on your registration to see if it's current. You can do that over the internet. Go to your browser, enter this address right here for the State Board's website, put this in your browser, hit return, and when you do, this page comes up. Now go over here under main menu and it says home, come down where it says licensure verification. Put your cursor right here, click on it, and when you do, this page comes up, and appropriately enough, it's called licensure verification. Now, this was put on the internet so that the public could check up on their dentist to see if their license was current and up to date, and also if the hygienist's license was current and up to date. So this has been on the website and is open to the public for a long period of time now. Well, recently they have decided to put registered dental assistants on here. All right, so you would come down here where it says registered dental assistants, and remember I put the error in, this won't be on the website. You click on this and it will take you to the page how you can check on your registration. All right, we come down here where it says registered dental assistants. Now, dentists and hygienists are up here, you're down here. All right, put in your last name and your first name, and then hit search, and it will take you to another page. Now, if your name is Jones or Sanchez, a whole bunch of names may come up. So just as an example, I put in here Jones, and then I hit the search button. This is just half of what came up. I mean, there was a whole bunch of Joneses up here. All right, now to find your particular one, pick out your name. Now, let's just say this is yours, the first one, which I picked. Click on it, and when you do, it will bring up the registration information about that particular individual. All right, right up here, it gives the status of the license. It's active, gives a license number, the date they became licensed, the date it expires. Now, look down here. They're going to put your telephone number and address on the internet. Anybody, anywhere can look at this. So, if this concerns you, you might think about using your office address. But if you do, remember, if you move or change jobs, you've got to notify the State Board. So be sure to notify them of your change of address. And there's a change of address form on this website. All right, registration renewal. When are you going to renew your certificate? Well, we said every year. All right, renewal of certificate will be staggered and can occur at 6 to 17 months during your first time that you re-register. So some of you will re-register as soon as 6 months, some of you will be out to a year and a half, and the others will fall somewhere in between. Now notice this one right here. Notification will be sent 60 days prior to expiration. Now what I'm going to encourage you to do is when you get that expiration notice, sit down that day, write a check out and mail it in. Now some of my friends will wait until the last week. You know, they're going to put it off as long as possible. They fill out their check, send it in. Most of the time it works out just fine. But let's say you forgot to sign the check. Or let's say that you forgot to check off one of the blocks on the form. What's the State Board going to do then? They're going to send it back. Or it takes a few days to get back to you, a few days to get back to the board. You're beyond the expiration date. If you go beyond the expiration date, what's the State Board going to want from you? More money. So don't let them get any more money out of you, okay? Registration renewal. Send the registration renewal fee, send proof of CPR training. Now, for the first time ever, dental assistants are going to have 6 hours of continuing education every year. Now, at the end of this section, we will go into great detail about your continuing education hours, where you can get it, and so forth. So let's just hold that for right now. Registration renewal forms must be submitted where? Where are you going to send your renewal? To the State Board in Austin. All right, now the State Board says the renewal forms will be reviewed within 3 working days. Now that's pretty optimistic considering they estimate there's 35,000 dental assistants in the state. So they're going to be pretty busy up there at the State Board. All right, if the forms are complete, what are they going to do? They'll send out your renewal certificate, right? If the forms are incomplete, what are they going to do? They're going to send it back to you to fill out the forms or for more information. Now, the last one down here I want you to put in your memory. Certificates expired for 1 year. 1 year will not be renewed. So don't let these certificates expire. You've gone to a lot of work to get them. You've paid a lot of money. So be sure and hold on to them and keep up with them. Display of your registration certificate. Now, let's say you've passed this course, you become registered with the state board, and you've got your certificate. You tell the dentist and the hygienist to move it on over. You're putting yours up there too. All right, now it does notice up here, it doesn't say where in the office. The dental assistant shall display the certificate of registration in the dental office where employed. Now notice it doesn't say where in the office to put it. So it could be the break room, the bathroom, the back door, ceiling, anywhere you want to as long as it's in that office. But what I find is in many offices what they'll do is place the certificates in a hallway between the reception area and the treatment rooms. Some of the offices I go into, they will have the certificates, particularly for the hygienist, in the office where the hygienist works. The dental assistant who works in more than one location will need to request additional copies from the state board, a duplicate certificate. Now, this is a state board rule. Do not break this rule. Do not photocopy your certificate. That is not permitted. If you copy it and they find out about it, they can take disciplinary action. So what I tell you is just go ahead and pay them the money. I think it's $11.50. Get that duplicate certificate and don't photocopy these things because that would be breaking a state board rule. Registration may be revoked for violation of any of these things here. Any rules of the state board, the Texas Dental Practice Act, any rules of the Bureau of Radiation Control, or any other rules affecting X-ray procedures in Texas. Now, I'd like for you to forget about jurisprudence for just a minute, and I'd like to give you my philosophy on life. I want to tell you how you can lead a happy, cheerful life if you'll just follow a few simple rules. Rule number 1, be prepared for surprises. Rule number 2, think outside of the box. Be a good listener. Exercise to keep fit. Take care of your teeth. Always have a nice smile. Give lots of kisses. Hold on to good friends. Good friends are hard to come by. Indulge in things you truly love. Live up to your name. Your name is very important. Love someone with all your heart. Love your friends, no matter who they are. Meet new people, even if they look different. Relax when you need to. Run when you need to. Say, I love you, often. Share with friends. Good friends are hard to come by. Know that someone loves you more than you know. Try to have a little fun each day. Take an occasional risk. And then once a day, just close your eyes and smile. Okay, back to reality. All right, who is practicing dentistry? The state board goes on for a half a page describing who is practicing dentistry. And I suppose they do this so that they can go after people who are practicing without a license. And if you practice without a license in this state, it's what type of a crime? It's a felony, you're right. All right, so if somebody uses the term dentist, doctor, or DDS, that's considered practicing dentistry. If they diagnose or remove stains from teeth, that's practicing dentistry. If they provide surgical treatment for pain or injury, performs cleaning or stain removal from teeth. Now look at this one. Making impressions of teeth of the mouth is practicing dentistry in this state. And the last one is the one that keeps anybody but a dentist from owning a dental practice. And what it says is, owns an office which employs another person to practice dentistry. So let's say a businessman just went out and rented some office space, put in some dental equipment. Now, who are they going to have to hire to treat those patients? A dentist. As soon as they hire that dentist, they're practicing dentistry. They don't have a license. That's a felony in this state. So this is the one that keeps anybody but a dentist from owning a dental practice. Now, here's some additional ones. Fits or repairs a dental appliance, aids in fitting or repairing appliance, makes a full or partial denture without a prescription. Now, everything that goes to a dental lab in this state must be accompanied by a what? By a prescription. Who is the only person that can sign the prescription? The dentist. All right, giving an anesthesia or an anesthetic drug, and finally, denturist. A denturist. What's a denturist? What's a denturist? It's usually, maybe not always, it's usually a lab technician that have decided they can make dentures and partials as well as the dentist. So they set up shop, sometimes in their own garage, and they take impressions, make the dentures, and deliver them to the public. Well, they don't have a dental license, and in this state, if you don't have a dental license and you do this, it's a felony. You got it. Now, this one is important to the dental assistant. I think it's important that you know these two things. Who is not practicing dentistry? Now, this is a part of the Dental Practice Act, and it protects you, the dental assistant, from being accused of practicing dentistry. So, if you make x-rays in the dental office under the supervision of the dentist, you're not practicing dentistry. If you perform your duties within the limits of the Dental Practice Act, you are not practicing dentistry. Okay, one more time. If you take x-rays, number one, in the dental office under the supervision of the dentist, you are not practicing dentistry. And number two, if you perform your duties within the Dental Practice Act, you're not practicing dentistry. The next topic is visual dental inspections, which I call screenings. They've also been called group assessments. Can a dental assistant do a screening? Yes, they can, as long as you follow the state board's rules on this. Now, one of the main things is no fee is charged. Now, screening is a group activity taking place in a public setting. So we're talking about outside the dental office, right? Could be a school, could be a sporting event. So it's a group activity taking place in a public setting. No fee is charged. Now, here's the state board's requirements. If you do a screening, you can only use three things. You can use gloves, tongue depressors, and a light. So I'd like you to remember that. You can use gloves, tongue depressors, and a light. Now, let's take a look at an example of this. This is a Special Olympics here, and this woman is using the three things that are allowed by the state board. She's got gloves on, got a flashlight, and she's using a tongue depressor. So you take the tongue depressor, put it inside the mouth or the cheek here, pull the cheek aside, hold your light, look in there, and you're looking for cavities or caries. So if you see some cavities, you tell this individual, you've got some cavities, you need to see a dentist. The criminal penalty of practicing without a dental license in this state is a felony. Now, here's the kicker. Each day is a separate offense. So if they could prove in a court of law, let's say that I've done this on 10 separate days, they can add on 10 separate jail fines and 10 separate fines for this violation. All right, the practice of dental hygiene. Now, this is from the Dental Practice Act, and it says the dental hygienist can remove accumulated matter, tartar, deposits, accretions, and stains from natural or restored teeth, smooths root surfaces, polishes exposed tooth surfaces, makes dental x-rays, and applies medications topically to the teeth. What does topically mean? All right, on the surface of, on top of, so topically to the teeth. Now, the hygienist can apply them, but who is the only person that can prescribe these medications? The dentist. You had it. All right, the dental hygienist cannot do these things here. Cannot diagnose dental disease, prescribe treatment, prescribe, order, or dispense medications. Well, only the dentist can do these three. Now, this next one has been changed. It said that the hygienist cannot use a laser for any purpose to include whitening. Now, I understand they've changed this, but if you look at the state board's rules, it hasn't been changed on the website yet. But what they say is now that the hygienist can use a laser for whitening teeth and for diagnostic purposes. So how many of you here have that little diagnostic laser called the Diagnodent? Okay, it's for diagnosing caries, and so it says that the hygienist can use that. Now, as far as I know, the dental assistant cannot use a laser for any purpose, whitening, diagnostic, or any other purpose. All right, the dental hygienist cannot perform any procedure that is irreversible. It has to be reversible, or involves intentional cutting of hard or soft tissue. Now, what that seems to say to me is, if the hygienist is scaling and slips and cuts off part of the tongue, that's okay. We haven't violated any rules. However, if the hygienist is scaling and sees a little bump on the tongue and takes that off with their scaler, we violated the rules. All right, a licensed dentist may delegate to the hygienist these things here. Any task or procedure that the hygienist is licensed to perform. Now, here is a big difference between the hygienist and the assistant. I'd like for you to remember this. Now, I want you to write this down. The hygienist works under a concept called general, G-E-N-E-R-A-L, supervision, S-U-P-E-R-V-I-S-I-O-N, general supervision. All right, what general supervision means is that the hygienist can work without the dentist being in the office. The hygienist can do procedures without the dentist being in the office. Now, there's a catch. There's a catch. The dentist must have examined the patient at the time the procedure has been performed or during the past 12 months. All right, now what this seems to say to me is, if we got a patient with periodontal disease and we put them on 3-month recall, patient comes back at 3, 6, and 9 months, the hygienist can see that patient without the dentist being in the office. Then when 12 months rolls around, what's got to happen? The dentist has to be there to examine that patient again. And this is called general supervision. Now, you work under a concept called direct supervision, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. The penalties for violating the dental hygiene regs are listed here. Fines can be from $100 to $1,000. Jail time can be from 1 month to 1 year. You can get both fine and jail time. And the kicker again is each day is a separate offense. Now, this is a part I think that's important to you. These are duties that cannot be delegated to a dental assistant. Now, once again, as we talk about these, this is just my interpretation. It may or may not agree with the interpretations of the State Board. Now, the first one up there is usually phrased this way. People will say the dental assistant cannot make a final impression. But the law is not worded exactly like that. The law says the dental assistant cannot take an impression for a final restoration, a final appliance, or a final prosthesis. Now, when I was giving this lecture one time, I had a member of the State Board attend, and she said we can take into account or consideration if this device is permanent or not. So let's take some examples. Study models. Can the dental assistant take impressions for study models? Yes, I think so. I think we'd all agree on that. All right, how about a bleaching tray? Can the assistant take an impression for a bleaching tray? You sound like you all agree on that. I agree with you. Now, there may be some people who would say the bleaching tray is an appliance. I don't think so. I look at an appliance as something like a holly that's used in orthodontics to move teeth around, guide teeth, hold them, so forth. So I don't look at the bleaching tray as being an appliance. Now, is it permanent? Not if the patient will follow your instructions, right? Now, some of them are going to wear it till they wear it out, right? But if they'll follow your instructions, they're only going to wear it for a couple of weeks and then for touch-up from time to time. So I don't look at it as a permanent appliance. All right, now how about a night guard, which is a bruxism appliance? Can the dental assistant take an impression for a bruxism appliance? I would say no, because it is an appliance. I consider it an appliance, and I consider it permanent. Now, some of these people will wear this bruxism appliance, a night guard, until they wear it out, and then you will make them another one. So some of them are going to be very long-term. Just my interpretation. All right, making an enteral oral occlusal adjustment. Now, only the dentist can grind on the teeth. The dental assistant can't do that. The dental assistant cannot do direct pulp capping or any endo procedure, cannot do final placement of an enteral oral fixed or removable appliance. Now, I'm going to talk about that one a lot more in the next slide. Cannot do any placement of any restoration, cannot administer any form of anesthesia, which you all know. Now, let's go back to the one that concerns who can legally adjust dental appliances. Now, this is from the State Board's website under Frequently Asked Questions. Now, this is in the Dental Assistant section, so if you ever want to look at that State Board website, they've got a bunch of frequently asked questions to help you interpret the State Board rules. This one says, who can legally adjust dental appliances? The State Board says, only a licensed dentist can make the final adjustments. Adjustments that are not final can be delegated by the dentist to the assistant. Now, what that seems to say to me is, if we get a denture back in the lab, a partial, a bridge, or even a crown, you guys, you assistants, could make the initial adjustments. You could make the initial try-in. But then the dentist has to come in, make the final adjustments, and seat that restoration. Duties that can be delegated to the dental assistant under the dentist's direct supervision. There's one that's very important I want you to put in your memory is you can do anything that is reversible. Now, what does reversible mean? Can be fixed or repaired. So you can do anything that's reversible, and that means can be fixed or repaired. You can also do any dental act that a reasonable and prudent dentist would find is within the scope of sound judgment, whatever that means. All right, you can also must be performed in the customary manner and does not violate any section of the Dental Practice Act. Duties that cannot be delegated to the dental assistant include these here. You cannot remove any calculus, deposits, or accretions from a natural tooth or restoration. cannot do any smoothing of teeth by polishing or root planing, cannot do comprehensive exam, cutting of the hard or soft tissue, prescribing a drug, medication, or authorizing laboratory work. If duties are delegated to the dental assistant, who's responsible for those duties? The dentist is responsible. Now, is the assistant partially responsible? Don't take any responsibility. So the dentist is totally responsible for the duties that are delegated. Now, you work under what type of supervision? Direct supervision. Now, direct supervision is defined right here, and it says the dentist must be in the office. Cannot be next door, right back, on the way in, out to lunch, at a meeting. Must be in the office. That's what direct supervision means. So you guys work under direct supervision, and the duties are performed in the usual manner. Our next topic is delegation of sealants. Can the dental assistant perform sealants? I'm going to say yes, they can if they are certified. All right, so the first requirement up here is the dental assistant must be certified to place the sealants. And we'll talk about how to do that in the next series of slides. Now, even though you're certified, you still cannot place the sealants unless the dentist is a Medicaid provider or works in an underserved area. So you might be certified, but if you worked in a dental office where the dentist is not a Medicaid provider, you still cannot do the sealants. So those two requirements are a must. You must be certified, dentist must be a Medicaid provider. All right, now, the dental assistant must have 2 years of experience. 2 years of experience. You must attend a 16-hour certification course, and I'll show you where those courses are located in just a minute. All right, now, for sealants, it's a 16-hour course. We're doing radiology today. The course must be how long? 8 hours. All right, so it's 8 hours for radiology, 16 hours for sealants. And under sealants, you must cover these subjects right here. We won't go into them, but those are the subjects that must be covered by the course. All right, the dental assistant may place sealants on the following conditions: that the dental assistant is employed by and works under the direct supervision of the dentist, is certified to place the sealants. Now notice, if you're certified to place sealants, this allows you to polish occlusal surfaces in preparation for the sealant. As far as I know, this is the only time the dental assistant is allowed to polish teeth is in preparation for sealant placement. But look at the next one. You are not allowed in this office to bill for a prophy if you polish the teeth in preparation for sealant. The prophy part of it is supposed to be built into the fee for the sealant. Sealant certification process. You must complete an application. I'll show you where to get the application form in just a minute. And pay a fee to the state board. Must provide proof of CPR training. Well, we should all have that anyway. Is everybody with me on that? Everybody in a dental office needs CPR training? All right, everybody needs that. We must have a current CPR card. Does that include your receptionist and your office manager? Yes, it does. All right, we got to provide proof of a 16-hour course that you've took on sealants. Well, if you go to one of these courses, they're going to give you a certificate or a letter saying you've passed it. So photocopy your certificate and send that in to the state board. All right, now the sealant certification renewal. Now we're talking about renewal here. All right, pay your renewal fee to the state board, provide proof of CPR training, and have 6 hours of CE each year. Now, this is not an additional 6 hours to radiology. It's just 6 hours. No matter if you're certified in radiology and sealants, it's still 6 hours per year. All right, this is one thing that's different from radiology. With sealants, you must register before January 1st each year. Everybody with me on this? With sealants, you must register before January 1st each year. Now, with radiology, when do you re-register or renew your certificate? All right, it's going to be annually, as you said, but it's going to be in the month that the state board first assigns you. So if you re-register in January, it will be January from then on for the rest of your career, or if it's July or December. All of you will be in different months, but that will be your month for the rest of your career. Now let's go back to the state board website. And let's look how to get an application form for sealants. Go under Dental Assistants right here. Come down where it says Optional Certifications. There's 2 optional certifications. There's one in sealants and there's one in nitrous oxide. All right, so you put your cursor here on Optional Certifications, click on it, all right, and scroll down the page until you come to the section called Pitt and Fisher Sealant Certification. Drop down here and it says Dental Assistant Application to apply Pitt and Fisher sealants. Come over here, click on the Adobe Acrobat icon, and that will come up. The application form will come up. Print it off on your printer. Now let's take a look at the courses that are being offered around the state for sealants. So these are the schools, and they're usually hygiene schools that will offer courses on sealant placement. There's one in Beeville, Corpus Christi, El Paso, Harlingen, Houston, and San Antonio. Now let's forget about jurisprudence for just a minute. I want to talk about remote controls. There's a new remote control on the market, and the next time you women go shopping, I think you should look for this new remote control. It's a gift every woman will want because I think it can make a significant difference in that relationship you have with that man in your life. Here's this new remote control, and it's called the He-mote control. You want him to talk to you? Just push now. You want him to stop snoring? Just push off. Notice there's no on button. You want him to walk the dog, take out the trash, and mow the lawn? Just push the button. And look over here at romance. You can increase it in increments, or you can decrease it in increments. And look at this section here called Buy Me. Buy me jewelry, dinner, flowers, chocolate, perfume, or all of the above. And down here for that big controversial issue, there's a big red button, put the toilet seat down. Okay, our next topic is called dental privilege. Now, dental privilege is the confidentiality of information created by three things: the dentist, the record, and the patient. The patient is the holder of the privilege. Privilege applies regardless of when the professional service was provided. So if it's yesterday, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it doesn't matter, dental privilege still applies. Now, what does this sound like? What does dental privilege sound like? What's that federal program that sounds like? What? HIPAA. It sounds like HIPAA. Right. Well, this is a state law. Dental privilege is a state law. It's under the Dental Practice Act. HIPAA is a federal law, and they are kind of alike, and I'll make some comparisons between the two as we go along today. Information that is privileged includes these two things right here: any information between the dentist and the patient as it relates to their treatment. And number two, any information in the dental record. Now here's the one I want you to remember. This is important to you. Privileged information may not be disclosed unless the patient consents in writing. What does disclosed mean? Given out to someone not involved in that patient's care. So we don't want to release any information unless that patient consents in writing. Now, if we do, there's fines for these, and the HIPAA fines can go up to $20,000 a year. So we don't want to violate any of these things. Now, here's what makes it so difficult to follow this rule. There's 8 exceptions to the rule, and nobody's going to remember all 8 of them. I can't even remember them. I'm just going to show you 4 of them here to give you an example. A parent. If a parent comes in and wants to see their minor child's health information, we don't need a written consent for them to look at that. A dentist acting on the patient's behalf. If you refer a patient to a specialist, you don't need a written consent to send their health information to the specialist. An attorney appointed by the patient. That attorney doesn't need written consent to see that person's health information. An executor of a deceased person's estate. Even dead people have rights under HIPAA and dental privilege. All right, the signed consent must include these 3 things right here. So the Dental Practice Act says before you release any of the patient's health information, get a signed consent that has, number 1, specific information being released, person to whom the information is being released, and the purpose of the release of the information. Now, HIPAA says the same thing, but they use different words. HIPAA doesn't call their form a signed consent. They call it an authorization. So they want a signed authorization. Now, they still want these three same things right here, but in addition, they want an expiration date. The patient will sign an expiration date. They will tell you when they want this thing to expire. And then HIPAA wants a statement on there saying that the authorization can be revoked at any time. So the patient can come in at any time and say, I want to revoke this authorization. Dental assistants may be registered with a state board in 3 areas. They are what? Give me the first one. Radiology, sealant placement, and nitrous oxide monitoring. Now look at this. There is no crossover registration. So if you're registered in one area, let's say radiology, it doesn't mean you can do the other 2. Or if you're registered in sealants, you can't do radiology and nitrous. So there's no crossover registration. right, the next topic I want to talk about is nitrous oxide monitoring, and you can be registered with the state board to monitor nitrous oxide. If you are, the dentist must have a permit to administer the nitrous and must induce and maintain the nitrous. What does induce mean? Start it up. All right, now I've had some people come to my courses here that say, you know, at the break they'll come up and say, you know, my dentist has me start the nitrous. And I said, well, this is what the state board rule says here. When you go back, talk with the dentist about this and say, you know, the state board rule says that you must start this. And then you too can decide how you want to handle this. All right, the dentist must maintain direct supervision over the personnel, meaning the dental assistant. The assistant can do two things. The assistant can do what in relation to nitrous oxide monitoring? Reduce the levels, number one, and turn it off, number two. You've got it. All right, the dental assistant requirements for nitrous oxide monitoring. Now, I put the top one up here in red because the state board just changed this about 1 month ago. If you want to monitor nitrous oxide now, you have to complete an 8-hour course approved by the state board. Now, I think there are only 6 courses right now approved here in the state. I believe one of them is here in Houston. You must maintain your CPR certification, work on the direct supervision of the dentist. Now, if you are certified to monitor nitrous oxide and you do it, the rules say we must document the name of the assistant in the record. So in the progress notes, we need your name. Also, we need the concentration of nitrous oxide used, the maximum dose, and that could be 30%, 35%, 40%, or whatever it was. And then finally, the time of administration. That could be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, or whatever time was required. Now, if you want to monitor nitrous, you can find the application form on the state board's website. Go back to those optional certifications and scroll down till you find application for nitrous oxide monitoring. You can open an Adobe Acrobat, put your icon on, put your cursor on that, click on it, and it comes up, print it off. Now, let's talk about the dental record. The records of the dentist include the following things. All right, they include the radiographs, the medical and dental history, periodontal charting, diagnosis made, treatment plans, and informed consent statements. Now, I've always thought of these things right here as being a part of the dental record. Now, I never thought that our study models were part of the dental record. Our cast, and look at this one, all your impressions are part of the dental record, at least on the state board rules. Billing records, payment records, and appointment records are all part of the dental record. All right, the dental records must be kept how long under the state board rules? 5 years. I want everybody to remember that. It's important. Now, some of you may work in an office that keeps the records out to 20 years. And the reason is there's another set of laws called the family laws. Now, what the family laws say are that a minor child has until the age of 18 plus 2 years, so that's 20 years total, to discover if some professional has caused them harm or hurt them and to file a lawsuit. So some offices will keep the records out to 20 years. All right, now who do the dental records belong to? All right, they are the sole property of the dentist. They don't belong to the patient, the state board, or anybody else. They are the sole property of the dentist. All right, now, if a patient comes in and wants a copy of their records, do we have to provide that copy? Absolutely. We've got 2 laws that say that. We've got a state law, the Dental Practice Act. We've got a federal law, which is HIPAA. Both of them say if a patient comes in and wants a copy of their records, we have to provide it. HIPAA goes one step further and says if a patient wants to look at their records, we've got to let them look at them. Not right this minute, but we do have to let them look at them. Now, both HIPAA and the Dental Practice Act says that we can charge a reasonable cost-based fee for copying the records. HIPAA doesn't say what's reasonable, but the State Dental Practice Act gets right to it and says we can charge $25 for the first 20 pages, 15 cents for each additional page, $15 for full mouth x-rays, pano, ceph, $5 for a single film. All right, now, we don't see any study models up there, and so they didn't list that. I've heard some attorneys say they thought $15 was appropriate for study models. Consumer information. Patients shall be notified that complaints concerning dental treatment can be directed to the state board. So we must provide our patients with these 3 items of information right here. The name of the state board, the mailing address, and the phone numbers of the state board. Now on this slide, it describes how we can do that. The state board's rules say there's 3 ways we can provide this information. I say probably 99% of all dental offices do it with number 1 right here, a sign prominently displayed in the office. How many of you have this little signs about this wide and this high in the reception area or somewhere around the reception area that says if you have complaints about dental services, you can call the state board? How many of you have this sign? All right, when you go back to your office, look at this, be sure you've got it. Because if you don't, you need one of these up. It's a state board rule. Now, you can call the state board, and for a fee, they will send you one of these signs out. Or if you want to make your own on your computer, they list the rules for it. It has to be at least 7 inches wide, 5 inches high, so like a 5x7 card. The font on there has to be at least 10 points. Now, 10 points is pretty small, so if you put it just a little bit away, they won't be able to see it. Okay, X-ray laboratories. X-ray laboratories must be located in the dental office of a Texas licensed dentist. Must have the appropriate degree of supervision. Now, this is a state board rule. We must use a lead apron and a thyroid collar. This is required by the state board. X-ray equipment must be monitored by the authorized agency. The next topic is sanitation complaints. If you have an investigator from the state board show up at your office with a sanitation complaint, the rules say that the investigator must be granted immediate access to your office, to the entire office. Now, why do you think they say they want immediate access? Well, right, so you don't keep them sitting out front while the staff's running around the back and they're cleaning and shining everything, and then you say, come on back. Okay, failure to grant access may result in temporary license suspension for the dentist. Now let's talk about your continuing education hours. For the first time ever, dental assistants are going to have 6 hours of continuing education each year. For the registered dental assistant, you're going to have how many hours? 6 hours. Now notice, all 6 hours can be in self-study. Self-study means a correspondence course, an internet course, or answering the questions at the end of an article and mailing it in. So this makes it pretty easy for you. You can go to a meeting and pick them up, like the Texas Dental Association meeting, or you can do it over the internet, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. The dentist, the hygienist, and the certified dental tech must have 12 hours. Now, notice here, the state board is going to do random audits. Now, when you renew your certificate each year, they're going to have a question on there. It says, do you have 6 hours of CE? And you're going to attest. A test means you're swearing that you've got these 6 hours. Now, if later on they check up on you and you don't have them, they can take disciplinary action. So 1 or 2 months after you've re-registered, 10% of you, I'm just going to guess it to be about 10%, will get a letter saying, oh, by the way, you're being audited this year. Would you send us your CE requirements? And if you don't have them, what's the state board going to do? Disciplinary action. So they don't say what they're going to do. It could be a warning, a reprimand, a fine, or they could suspend or revoke your license. All right, keep your registration certificates for how long? 3 years, all right? Keep these things. So I'm going to recommend that you make a file folder and put on there continuing education credits, or make a manila envelope and put those things in there and be sure and keep up with them. Now, the state board may not accept just any CE course. So before you take a course, be sure that the state board will accept it. And here's some of the things they will accept. Now, this is not all of them. This is just part. If the American Dental Association or the Texas Dental Association puts on a course, the state board will accept it. So if you go to the Texas Dental Association state meeting, any of the courses there will be acceptable. If the Academy of General Dentistry puts on a course, or any of its local societies in any of the towns, like this one right here today, the state board will accept it. If you go to a course that's got the seal right here, ADA CERT, ADA is American Dental Association, CERT is Continuing Education Recognition Program, the state board will accept that. Now notice this one. The state board will not accept any hours on OSHA, HIPAA, CPR, or practice management courses. They say, oh, you're already required to have those. We're not going to accept any hours on those. All right, let's look at a website where you can get some free continuing education hours. It's Crest, like Crest Toothpaste, their website. So it's www.crest.com. I put that on your handout. Now, when you put this in your browser and hit return, this page should come up. These are free continuing education courses from Procter & Gamble. Go over here where it says For Professionals, come down to United States, click on that. When you do, this page comes up and you can see it says Crest Oral-B. Come to this column over here, come down to Continuing Education. Click on Continuing Education and this page comes up. Now what it says here is This is a CREST website. All CE courses are free and have ADA certification. Now, to select an audience, come down to Dental Assistant. Click on that and it'll highlight. Now we need to select the courses. So once you've selected Dental Assistant, you can either select all topics or courses for allied dental staff. If you select this one first, click on this one, this page comes up. There are 28 courses in this section. They range from 1 hour to 2 hours to 3 hours. I think there's some up to 4 hours. Now you take the course online and they'll issue a certificate at the end of the course online and you print it off. Now let's go back, and if you select all topics right here, then this page will come up. There's 63 courses in this section, 63. And so there should be something here for everybody. So you need 6 hours, so go through, pick out the course that you think you might like. And remember that the State Board says it should apply to the duties of the dental assistant. Almost all these courses here, I've looked at them, say it's acceptable. The acceptable audience is dentists, hygienists, and assistants. Now, do you have days when you come home from the office and you look and feel like this? You're washed out. You're stressed out. You've had a bad day at the office. You've had walk-in patients. Procedures haven't gone well. And you're stressed out. Well, I just wanted to let you know that I've developed a new stress release program, and I call it Stand Up and Dance Like No One's Watching. At this point, we will take a 15-minute break. It's 5 after 9, so if we can come back at 20 after, and we'll pick up promptly at 20 after 9.